And I know this sounds kind of strange, but the first thing you do is you come over here and you check the tire pressure. Because if the tire pressure isn't correct and maintained evenly, then you can't maintain the head height. So, like I say, we need to start over here and review the areas that are the most important for the tire pressure. And number one is the gauge wheel tire on the head. We maintain that at about 25 pounds, and that eliminates, if you put too much pressure in it, it's going to bounce. If you put not enough pressure in it, it's just going to be mushy. So you need to maintain daily the pressure on that gauge wheel and the drive tire gauge wheel over there, because both of those affect the height. And the main thing on a sweeper head is if you don't maintain the height, you're getting more dirt into the windrow, and you're also increasing the wear and life expectancy of the wire rakes. So anyway, the first thing you do when you adjust the head is, number one, is adjust the top link. A lot of guys will go in there and they'll adjust the head, and it ends up being well, basically it moves too much dirt. So you want the head to be basically level, which is where we are right now. But the optimum adjustment is to have it lower in the front by about a half a turn. And that is the optimum adjustment. So anytime you walk up to a sweeper and the head's dived in or raised up, it's not right. It's not going to sweep properly. Okay, to adjust the head, the first thing you do is rotate it to where the tines are in the lowest position. And at that point, you should have about 1/4 of an inch clearance between the end of the tine and the ground level, which on this one is pretty close. Okay, to adjust the head, you've got an adjustment on the gauge wheel right here. You loosen the clamp bolt and the adjusting nut, and either raise it or lower it.
Just make clear to the new guys that not the rubber fingers, it's the metal.
Right. Then to adjust the other side, you have an adjustment right here. So you'll raise or lower it as whatever's necessary. And this is the best view right here. You can see that the wire rake is up and the rubber finger is in contact with the ground. And that's a perfect adjustment. Now, the perfect adjustment isn't good for when you get out in the orchard, but this is where you want to start. But you know, every orchard is different, and then you want to just go on from there and maintain that adjustment. Okay, one of the new features we've incorporated into this head is warning lights, which flash anytime you have the key on, and operational lights when you can turn on or off as you're going down the road for you know, like a lot of guys work at night. So you have nice LED lights there, and you also have an LED coming out the side, which shines on the tree so you can see what you're coming into. Which I haven't even tried this yet. We'll see how it works. We recommend about 30 pounds of pressure in the drive tires and 25 pounds of pressure in the gauge wheel. Now, the amount of pressure isn't as important as keeping the pressure consistent all the time, because anytime that tire pressure changes or this tire pressure changes, it affects the head height. So that's really should be part of your daily maintenance. Anytime you need to tow this sweeper, you need to turn these plates around and put it in neutral. And that's really important, because if you try to tow it without it being disengaged, you'll ruin the torque hubs. Okay, this is the engine compartment. We're using the John Deere 4.5 liter turbocharged engine. And it's really important to keep this area clean at all times, at least 2 or 3 times a day, clean it out. And there's an area down here between the engine, oil pan, and the cross tube for the blower that you really have to keep clean, because as this thing goes into the regeneration process, you're getting really high temperatures and there's always a chance of fire. It's hard to Okay, when you're cleaning the radiator, the engine compartment, you need to blow everything in to the rear. And we have this trapdoor latch on the condenser that won't open. There. So anyway, when you blow from the inside, you blow in that direction so you can clean the radiator and the condenser. Okay, we're going to come back to the engine in a little while to go over the regeneration process and the engine maintenance items. Okay, one of the best features of this sweeper is that our blower is belt driven, so that we can run higher RPMs at the blower than the engine is running, which is only at 1850. So, and that gives us tremendous air velocity, which is one of the biggest benefits of this sweeper. Okay, these chutes are adjustable. That was transport position. This is operational position, and this rear chute is adjustable from inside the cab. There's a hydraulic cylinder. Biggest features of this sweeper is it's a 3-wheel sweeper with a rear steer, which means when you come out the end of a row, you can turn right back around and just make continuous loops rather than having to stop and back up to make your turns. It's probably one of the best features we have. There is one grease fitting here. There's a total of only 4 grease fittings on the whole sweeper that need to maintain daily. Okay, one of the most important things on a sweeper or any piece of agricultural equipment is the maintenance of the air filters. This filter is the one that pressurizes the cab. So you just unscrew that wing nut, open it up, pull out your filter, and clean it. We don't recommend blowing because it damages the filter base. So we recommend just tapping it out gently. You notice this filter housing is made for an inner and an outer filter, but we only utilize the outer filter on this one, so we're more able to maintain pressure inside the cab.
Filter minder on the dash?
We do not have a filter minder on the dash. We have a filter minder on the engine air filter that you can use to kind of determine your regularity of maintenance, but it doesn't get used very often. Usually our maintenance frequency is 3 times a day. At least 2 times a day, lunchtime and closing time. Okay, the engine filter, it is really the heart of the machine. If this isn't clean, your engine isn't going to last you very long. And we recommend on this one also just tapping out rather than blowing out with air, because as soon as you start blowing it out with air, you damage the element and you're getting dirt inside the filter housing. You're getting dirt inside the safety filter, which doesn't actually filter air. I mean, filter the dirt out like this one does. So anytime this one is brown, you need to be changing both filters. Well, we'll come back and put this back together in a little bit. I'm going to leave it off so we don't forget. Well, you know, let's just go through it, because it can be tricky to put together once in a while. So you just need to make sure you have everything lined up. This one's extra finicky. Okay, this is the pre-cleaner. Really doesn't need any maintenance. We just need to be aware that it's there, and you should probably just take it off once in a while and make sure that little rotator rotates. Okay, this is the computers down here. This is what monitors the John Deere engine. There's also a relay down here that, like, if you're going to leave the sweeper set for a while, you need to turn that off, and that keeps your battery charged. If you are going to weld on this equipment, you need to totally disconnect the battery. Okay, sometimes you'll be walking around this thing and looking for the dipstick. Anyway, it's hidden way down in there, and it's kind of hard to get to. Okay, as I was saying, telling you before, the blower on our sweeper is belt driven, so we can run it at a higher RPM than the engine RPMs, and it's driven by this belt system. It's right here, and the belt is tensioned by the weight of the blower housing, and also the centrifugal force of the rotation keeps the belt tension. To change the belts, you just lift up on the blower housing with this lever, and it locks in place, and you can remove the belts without any problem at all. It's you know, in the past we've had an idlers, and you had to take the seat out to get to the belts, but now this has really been a huge improvement. The the belts are Kevlar, so they don't stretch. The main wearing components are the shivs. So if you're having squealing belts or problem maintaining the rotation and the airspeed, you pretty much probably need to replace the shivs. Okay, there's 2 grease fittings on this blower. We're really up in the air as far as how often to grease. I looked up the specs last night, and a bearing like this requires like a half a pump every 500 hours under normal maintenance. I mean, but I know out in the field and in reality that's never going to happen, that they're going to get greased almost every day. But so our recommendation is just take it easy. Less grease is better, and it'll go with the probably for years without ever being greased at all. So it's really it's really hard to retrain guys from greasing every day or even twice a day. So it's but anyway, once you fracture the seal on the sweeper, I mean on the bearing, you're gonna have to grease it every day.
You still have the hydraulic cylinder to keep tension on the belt when you hit bumps and stuff, so that the belt doesn't pop off.
It doesn't. It has a shock absorber, but pretty much the shock absorber is just to reduce the bounce from the rotation. Okay, do we have any questions about anything in there? Okay, all of our sweepers and harvesters use motor oil rather than hydraulic oil. In this particular one, we have 1030 motor oil. In the which you guys probably mostly stock 1540, and that's compatible with this also, as long as it's engine oil and not hydraulic oil. You never want to put hydraulic oil in this sweeper because it won't. It's not compatible, and it'll turn like cottage cheese. So, and it's cheaper, but it maintains its viscosity a lot better at a higher temperature. Is the reason we're using it, and it has good more anti-wear additives than hydraulic oil. So that's where we're at on that. Fuel tank is 29 gallons, and it'll get you about a 8 to 10 hour day, depending on how hard you're working the blower. Again, we have the torque hub release, and anytime you need to tow it, you need to release both of those torque hubs. Okay, let's go back over to the other side. Okay, again, this is the 4.5 liter John Deere turbocharged engine. We have it set at 74 horsepower because at that point we're below the requirement for DEF, but we do have the regeneration process, which is right here, and it was this whole thing was designed by our neighbors over here, which I know you're familiar with, Western Engine. Okay, there are a couple of maintenance items in here. You have your engine oil filter is here, and this engine comes with John Deere break-in oil. And right now our recommendation is to run that engine oil for 100 hours and then change it. During that 100 hours, if you were to have low oil, you need to add and top it off with the John Deere engine oil. At that point, there's a lot of different ways guys maintain their oil and their frequency. Some change it every 100 hours, some 200 hours. We recommend 100 hours. Just because of the dirty conditions that it runs in, we're still at the 100-hour point. There's a charge pump filter down here that you really can't see, and it's got a little dial on it. If you were to see this little pointer out of place in the red position, all you do is you start your engine, reach down in there, and if that little pointer will rotate, everything's good. I know it's hard to see from over there. Anyway, like we were saying, this whole thing is computerized, so there's no wires, cables. Everything is all pre-programmed. You can add oil here. You don't have to do it over there in that dipstick that's hard to get to. Got the John Deere fuel filter. Then this is I'm not really sure what you call this, but it filters the blow-by. I guess it's a blow-by filter. I don't know. Yeah, crankcase filter. While you're in here cleaning the engine, you need to also be sure you check the serpentine belt. Okay, the regeneration is monitored by this little monitor right here on the dash, and the biggest requirement is don't touch it. I mean, it's going to tell you what your system is doing, but all it is a monitor. It can be programmed and turned off, but the recommendation is never touch the monitor. Anyway, that's what you got to tell your operator, just leave it on. Because when it goes into its regeneration process, there's going to be a light flashing here. There's going to be a red light flashing over here. And there's going to be a buzzer going off. And first thing the operator is going to do is panic and start pushing things and turning it off. And that's exactly what you don't want to do. You just want to keep driving the whole time. Inside the cab we have foot pedals that operate the head. The left one raises it up. Okay, to raise the head you have a foot pedal right here. The head is adjusted from 0 to the foot pedal on the floor to raise, and the pedal next to it lowers the head. And it's really important when the operator lowers the head to lower it all the way to where these lift arms are totally down. Otherwise, the head doesn't have any flotation.
You want slack on the chain?
I'm going to say that these chains should always be slack when you're in the sweeping position. This one and that one over there. Then also inside the cab we have a control that monitors the speed of the reel, and that's infinitely adjustable from 0 to about 80 RPMs. And that, and then you can also turn the head on and off from the dash without having to use the flow control. There's a light switch that turns the lights on. There's a anytime you shut the sweeper off, there's the brake locks. Anytime you lock it, it actually puts the whole sweeper into neutral so that you don't have any oil going into it. Like our older sweepers, that if you were to set the brake and push the hydrostat lever forward, you would actually ruin your brake. Whereas this one, you turn it off and it free coasts.
That push button for the head is nice because you find that sweet spot for your setting. You don't have to find that spot. You push it on and off.
Right.
You're going around the rows.
Right. It's a good way to instruct your operator. You're going to run it at a certain RPMs, and no matter what, if you don't, you're in trouble, right? So anyway, what else we got in here? We have climate control air conditioning, so the operators are always pretty comfortable. It's probably the best job to have right now. Also, we have a camera inside that gives a really nice view of the rear of the sweeper. It's good for backing up so you don't back into trees, because a lot of sweeping in an orchard is there's a lot of backing up, especially when you're blowing the ends in, and so it's nice to be able to have a view of the rear. Okay, do we have any questions on this at all? Does that mean no?
So the park brake, does it get engaged automatically when you're stopped? You have to engage it, whether it'll be overridden when you drive forward?
Okay, once you engage the parking brake, if you move the hydrostat, nothing happens. I mean, it just you don't even hear it. It just bypasses all the hydraulic fluid.
On the brake, is that only on one wheel motor on the front?
It's on both.
Is that on both?
It bypasses both, right?
Okay.
And the brake is internal. So the brake locks up on both
So
both
it's not
wheels.
a separate unit, the brake.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I know a lot of
It's sandwiched. It's sandwiched in with the
the hub.
with the hub. Yep.
When you're 2 speeds, I know if guys are trying to run fast sometimes, you know, does it do damage when you're trying to run it in the rabbit speed, you know, to do the sweeping? Is it better for the torque and stuff to have it?
Okay, you can on the 2-speed, you're operating at about up to 7 miles per hour in the orchard, or you're up to about 14 miles an hour on the street. You won't damage anything if you start out in high range, but it's a smoother transition. You don't put as much stress on the engine if you start out in low and then shift up into high. But you really don't want to shift from high to low going 14 miles an hour, because you probably put your nose right through the windshield. It's quick. You go from 14 to 7 that fast. I mean, but no, you don't want to go from high to low when you're up at higher RPMs, because it changes really quick. Any questions on the head adjustment? I know I went through it kind of quick, and what I'm really looking forward to is going out with all you guys and getting some actual field experience with this equipment. That's really the best way we can learn it. It's great to do it here, and a good thing to reference. But the field's really where we learn.
The intake for the air conditioning, some guys put their coats and stuff in there to block it. Where is that located, just so we can make sure that it is stayed clear?
The intake is covered now. You can't really.
Can't block it with coats or
Not really.
lunches and stuff.
No, it's pretty well protected. The the air conditioner really works good. It'll actually run you out of there. Okay, any questions on the regeneration process? I know it's until you really get out and live with it for a while, it's hard to come up with questions on it. But it's pretty much a John Deere system, and as long as you keep your hands off of that monitor, we've never had any problems with it. Okay, I guess that's it.
Positive flow burn brush, do you guys, I know we don't have one on here, but what is different about your guys' or setting that up?
Yeah, we don't have the brush on here, but it's actually the only thing that we have patented. It's called the Posi Float brush, and it mounts there in place of the paddle wheel, and it's totally adjustable as far as the height and the width and the flotation. So we can adjust it so where there's hardly any ground contact at all, and it's just continuously rotating, and it probably increases your ground speed by about 30%, and it really enhances and contributes to the effectiveness of the blower.
So it's plumbed and everything in case a customer eventually wants to put a float on. But then, what about the head size? Is that
the only difference in the head size is because of the length of the hoses. The 7.6 will fit on a 6.6, but a 6.6 won't fit on a 7.6. All you do, you bolt it right there. The holes are already fabricated into the frame, and then the hoses from it just go into series with the hoses for our main motor drive. So pretty much it's a really quick and simple installation. And if it needs to come off it, you can take it off in 15 minutes and put it back on in an hour. The hydrostat.
What's your guys' pressure that you guys usually your charge pressure to the hydrostat? And then I was wondering as well as the gallons per minute from the hydrostat at full stroke. Do you
I don't know what the gallons are at full stroke on this particular one, because this is It's a newer version of what we were using, but the charge pressure is like 400 or 500 pounds. And when before the season starts, we'll bring somebody down here that can really go over that with you guys. And because since we went to this fly-by-wire system, we're using different components, and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
No, it's okay.
Right.
For new equipment on initial startup, what are some tips or some common problems that we should check or be aware of that typically go wrong or something like that?
Well, the main things are what we were going over is the on a startup, you want to adjust the head. That's probably number one, which requires the tire pressure. And my view is every operator should have a pressure gauge, or at least the maintenance guys, and it should be checked, because you can really do a lot of damage by having the heads improperly adjusted. So anyway, you want to do the head adjustment, the tire pressure, review the blower operation, review the cleaning process. But we run these things for 3 or 4 hours before they ever get shipped out, and so they're pretty thoroughly tested. They don't just assemble them and load them on the truck. They got to get all the pressure checks, the tires. They have a pretty extensive checklist before they get shipped out.
All of these come with a wrench in there. What is the
Okay, the wrench the wrench is only if there's a brush. The wrench is what we use to do the adjustment on the brush. The standard sweeper shouldn't have that.
How about the headstands? All of them come with the headstands. Where do you put those? So people know.
Okay, the headstands the headstands bolt here and on the other side. So if you were to want to remove the head from the sweeper, you've got a nice handy stand to set it on, and that way you can either take this in for maintenance, or some guys actually take the head off and do their sanitation without the head on it. So it's they're pretty handy to have around.
How about the bearings on the head, basically the time bars? Those are sealed bearings.
These bearings? Okay, those are sealed bearing, and they last until you get them buried or a lot of twine wrapped around them. That is the main thing that kills those bearings. And I like those the bearings right here on that shaft. They would probably last forever without ever greasing them. This thing's only turning like 60, 80, 90 RPMs, and unless you get a bunch of twine wrapped around to damage the seal, they're not going to fail. But it's really hard to convince anyone of that, if you know what I mean. They're still going to get greased every day.
Can you reverse your head if you get a big stick lodged in there, so you kick it back out instead of getting it wedged up in there?
You cannot reverse the head.
You just kind of got to pick it up.
Yeah. Well, one of the safety issues, going back to that brake, is when you're out there starting this thing up, you're gonna put an operator in there, and you're gonna tell him, go ahead and go. You're gonna close the door, and you're gonna see him in there. He's gonna try to start working the hydrostat, and nothing's happening. So you're gonna walk up and you're gonna open this door, and you're gonna hit that brake switch. And the first thing that's going to happen, this door is going to knock you down. So it's just that's one of the safety issues I've seen actually experience in the field. So you got to walk up, stay back here, and tell him to turn that switch, and just close the door, and he can go. That's thanks for bringing that up. It's something I usually try to remember it out in the field, but here it's a little different.
Your cab is pressurized.
The cab's pressurized. That's what that little filter on the side does.
How about your steering stops on your floating wheels? Do you need to adjust those much?
Never been adjusted. Never.
Just a stop.
That used to just be a tab, and at one point they made it adjustable, but I've never seen one adjusted. I never had to adjust one.
If this gets bottomed out on a ditch at the end of the road, it's best to pull it from the back, because the whole front head and the front of things on the ground.
It is best to pull it from the back. Now, if the engine's still running, you can just put it in reverse and do it. But if the engine won't run, then you got to disconnect the hubs right away. Okay, any more questions on the sweeper?
On the engine fan, I didn't see. Is it fixed? Like, so it doesn't turn the fin, so it blows dirt out? Like cleaning the radiator?
It sucks. It's fixed, and
It's fixed, so it only goes one way. So how often do you have to sit there and blow or?
it's usually blown out twice a day. Usually at lunchtime and then at night or in the morning. And that's it's really important that it gets blown out and cleaned, especially in these areas down here, because as that trash builds up, when it goes into the regeneration process, any little leaves or anything that might have accumulated around the turbo drop down in there and could catch a fire. We have shielded it with this to keep trash out of there. Okay, we're gonna show the lifting and lowering of the head and the rotation and setting the reel speed. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate the function of the brake. See, at this point, the machine won't move and there's no stress on it at all. Take the brake off. I set the brake and it stops immediately. The brake is off. Turn the key off. Turn the key back on. And the brake is set.